When the 9/11 Commission report was issued, some of the recommendations were adopted, some were not. Governor Kean, in light of recent domestic terror attacks, is it time, do you think, to re-examine and update that report?
In the first place, all our recommendations are good, and they're still good, and any that haven't been implemented ought to be implemented. Secondly, yeah, it's time to look at it again. And Lee Hamilton, who was my vice chairman of the 9/11 Commission, and I have co-chairing an effort working out of the Bipartisan Center in Washington. And we're going to relook with a group of experts the whole area of terrorism, looking at new approaches, ways in which we can fight the ideology, ways we can do things differently, because we're not succeeding as well as we ought to right now. And so it's time to look at it again.
What are your thoughts about resources and robust intelligence and how we're using that or not using it effectively to fight terrorism?
Well, our intelligence community has changed, in some ways not so good. For instance, we don't do much human intelligence anymore. Everything's by machine or wire or new technology or drone or what have you, which means we don't have any idea what's going on, for instance, inside ISIS. Because we don't have the kind of human intelligence the intelligence community used to have inside almost any enemy's quarters. And so it's a different kind of intelligence. Also, the CIA has been developed and has been weaponized. Because we don't want a military involved in stuff, the CIA is now in control of a lot of the units, so it's a military organization. So instead of worrying about intelligence and giving us the intelligence, they're worried about actually fighting on the ground, and that's a brand new function for the CIA. And I think the CIA is spending too much time now fighting wars and not enough with their real function, which is providing the best kind of intelligence under which we can make the best possible decisions in this war on terror.
Where are we falling short?
Well, if I have one criticism of the last administration, it's in the area of cyber. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I talked to every member of the intelligence community in the leadership in the Obama administration. They all said the same thing. The biggest danger we have is cyber. And we're not doing anything about it. Because recognize that the cyber threat is mostly in the private sector. 90% of it's in the private sector. And the public sector and the private sector is not combined to fight it the way they should, which means we're vulnerable. It means our utilities are vulnerable. It means our financial system on Wall Street is vulnerable. It means we're totally vulnerable. We could get much worse. And so we've got to get on top of that. We've got to get a better defense for cyber, and we've got to spend a lot more resources on that.
So what keeps you up at night, Governor Kean? What are you most concerned about in these areas of fighting terror?
Well, cyber is one of them, but not the most lightly. The biggest threat has always been a terrorist who has nuclear capacity. Now, it's not the most likely, but it's the one we worry about most, so we got to take care of it. The other is, we've metastasized now around this whole area, around the Horn of Africa, so that terrorism's coming from 30 different places now. It's not just Afghanistan as it was at the time of 9/11. So we're not focusing on that. We're not focusing enough on the ideology. We're not using the full capacities we did, for instance, in the Cold War of the American government to fight terrorism. And therefore, there are 3 times more attacks than there were 10 years ago. That's not winning. That's not winning. So we got to look at it differently.
How do you balance national security with the right to privacy?
All of us have got to balance that, and we got to do it in a democratic way. Look, in the old days, the FBI caught criminals by wiretapping. They went to a judge, they got permission, they wiretapped, they got the bootlegger, they got whoever it was. Now, they can't do that because the new technology, Skype and all of that, it's against the law. You can't do that. You can't go into those private systems. So for the first time, the bad guys have the capacity to talk in private without our law enforcement agencies being able to intercept it. Now, we've got to make that decision. Should we give them the partial right, certain technologies? The companies say, we'll hurt our worldwide business if we give the FBI the right to go in and look at it. But we've got to do something. Because the idea that these people can talk and use a plot and plan without our being able to find out about those plans is a real danger to each one of us. And in that regard, one of our best allies, we should never forget this, are people in the Muslim community who hear something around their mosque, hear somebody saying something, and because they're good American citizens, report that to the local authorities. Now, we got to thank them. We've got to recognize that the Muslim community has already prevented a number of terrorist attacks, and hopefully will prevent a lot more by simply being good citizens, by simply, when they hear something wrong, reporting it to the authorities.
So we have to all stay aware.
We have to all stay aware, and just, if anything's wrong, let somebody know about it. That's the best thing we can do.
Governor Kean, thank you very much for enlightening us on this issue.
Thank you very much.